I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hello and welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, as always, your TV Guidance Counselor, and this is the show where each and every week I talk to an interesting person, usually a comedian, as I am a stand-up comedian, about classic television using a TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation. This week's guest is a comedian, a young comedian I didn't know, Ahmed Al-Kadri. Very funny, nice dude. He's got a new special out called Special Not Special. It's on YouTube streaming. You can go to his website, which is ahmedlovesbread.com. That's his actual, it's memorable, ahmedlovesbread.com, and I also love bread, but his comedy special is very funny. You watch it, it's free. Can't go wrong. You want your money back? Too bad you didn't pay anything. But I really enjoyed talking to Ahmed, and it's always interesting doing these issues from like the 2000s, when I feel like I was a grown-ass adult. But I feel like, I believe it's 2008 here. We're far enough away from it that I can start to be sort of analytical about that time, and that, I don't know, I found that interesting. Anyway, hopefully you'll find it interesting too. I'm sure you will. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Ahmed Al-Kadri.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Ahmed Al-Kadri, how are you, sir?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm also very happy that you're enthusiastic to look at a TV guide. Normally, I really have to like handhold people through it and be like, it's very simple, see?
I mean, it's pretty like, easy to look to read. Like, I don't understand. Like, even though I never really read a TV guide. I mean, in 2007, okay, I was born in 93. Sorry for the older. So I was like, 14 years old. So at 14 years old, did I use a TV guide? No. All I did was flip through channels and go from there.
Yeah, and you had like TiVo and like a on-screen guide. Like, so this is, the issue you picked here is February 19th to 25th, 2007. So this is after like classic TV guide. This is when it just became like a big regular size magazine. And I don't know who used it because nobody needed TV listings in 2007. Like, I assume old people maybe, but this is like a weird era of TV guide. So it was interesting for me to go through because this is like when you were born, I was 13. So nice. Like I had stopped kind of reading it at this point, and my viewing habits in 2007 were very strange, which we'll get into in a bit here. But you grew up in Dallas, so you were on Central Time, right?
Yeah, I was always in Central Time, yeah.
Lucky bastard. Because although it didn't really matter, I think, when you were in your late teens, because by that point, like, people were doing time shifting. But earlier, it was like, you could watch the 11 o'clock, like, late night shows at 10. You could go to bed early. Like, you got all the things we didn't get. It was very, very upsetting.
Yeah, like Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
10:30?
Well, I was in Central, yeah. So it was like, 10:30 for us? Yeah. 10:30.
It's over by midnight. You can go out, you can do a ton of stuff after that.
Yeah. Well, I was 14 years old, so we had to go to bed.
Amateur. Did you have siblings?
Yeah, we're 5 boys, 1 girl.
Okay.
So I'm the second oldest. My older brother, Mustafa, then it's me, Ahmed, and then it's Abdurrahman, Hamza, Maryam, Muhammad. I'll do the Starbucks name version. It's AR, Ahmed, Ahmed, AR, Hamza, Maryam, and Mohammed.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah, Mo.
It's classic.
It's
Mo.
So you're the second oldest. So did your older brother make decisions? Did you have like one TV in the house, or did you have multiple?
So we had one TV in the house. We didn't have cable, so we just we had very limited channels, but when it came to after school, we were kind of all in agreement of what we wanted to watch. It started at 5 o'clock. It was The Simpsons. 5:30 was, it usually would be, I think it was Friends which my brother. No, Friends was at 6 p.m. Sorry, 5:30 was something else. I think it was King of the Hill.
Oh, that would make
But we
sense.
would change it. We would change it to Fox and watch that 70s show, and then we would change the channel back to WV33 to watch Friends. Oh, sorry, we would skip Everybody's Love Raymond. That's right.
Oh.
Even though we would watch it sometimes, but we liked that 70s show more.
Yeah.
So we
that's
would go
more
that.
youth-oriented.
Yeah. And then we watched King of Queens, and then we would watch. There was one more show. I'm blanking out. Was it? I don't want to say it's free. I think. Wow, I'm blanking. I gotta like call my friends now, or my brothers. I gotta
Doing
call
a
my
phone a
brother.
friend?
Like, well, but we were, but it was like specific, like certain, like those, like it was like 4 TV shows. I was like The Simpsons, Family Guy, That 70s Show, and I think Friends. I think Friends was probably the last one.
That would make sense.
No.
Were you latchkey kids?
Because it was like
were,
prime.
Were your parents working at that time and you were kind of left home alone to watch
My
that stuff?
dad was working all the time. My mom, she had like some jobs like at the house. Like she did some babysitting. She sewed. She would cook. Like she did, just like all
jobs,
the
but
things.
she was at home
Yeah,
usually doing them, yeah.
yeah, doing all of that. And, for me, she would tell us to turn off The Simpsons. We'd be like, yeah, sure. And we just wouldn't listen. Like, we just kept watching. We loved The Simpsons, my brothers and I. And then my favorite was Saturday, like, every morning during the summer, we would watch, like, PBS. So it was, like, from Sesame Street to all those other kids' cartoon. And then, like, Cyber Chase.
Yep.
Oh, my God. I
Clifford.
love that one. Clifford the Big Red Dog, yeah, the cartoon one. And then that's when we were bored in the afternoon, especially when we had days off. And that's when we watched Maury, Jerry Springer. And then late at night, we would watch Cheaters. Remember Cheaters?
Oh, I remember Cheaters, yeah.
Bro, guys, okay, so the listeners out there, if you don't know what Cheaters is, it was a guy or a girl, like, so let's say there was a spouse, right? They would come in and they would have a one-on-one interview with the camera, and they're just saying, I don't know what's going on with my partner. Bro, they're just saying the most obvious, like, reasons of what.
They're clearly cheating.
They're clearly cheating. They're like, oh, he's been she like my partner's been distant. They've been talking back to me.
Sometimes she comes home with pants on that she wasn't wearing when she left.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, very obvious. And then they would send out a surveillance team, a professional surveillance team, to spy on the cheater for a week, get video footage, show the video surveillance to the person being cheated on, and then they go, and then they zoom out and they're like, you want to know why we're in the parking lot of this Chili's?
Yeah, this is where it turns. This is why it's a TV show.
This is where they're at right now. And they look at the camera, let's go team. And then they would barge into the cheater and the date. And then all hell breaks loose. God bless America.
Yeah, I think the host actually got stabbed once on the show, or maybe twice.
The host got stabbed. I don't know why it was the host that got stabbed.
Well, he was in the way. I think he got in between them. I don't think they were like,
oh,
taking it
yeah,
out on
that's
them.
right. That's
but I
right.
think he was
That
like,
makes sense.
I'm the host here. I need to have some decorum. That show was bizarre because it often felt fake, like most reality shows. Like Jerry Springer was always, that was so set up. But then you'd have people like beating the shit out of each other, like stabbing each other. And you're like, wait a minute, this seemed really fake. Is this just how these people are?
Yeah, that was crazy. The craziest episode I've ever seen, and I don't know if you could find it on YouTube, but it was this guy, his wife was cheating on him, and then they barge into the apartment. They go into the apartment. That's the craziest part.
Which
They
are
go
always
into
unlocked. They're always unlocked for some reason.
Yeah, so they'll go in an apartment, but then it was like the girl and the other girl, but they're both in full clown uniform. So
like
they're
juggalos.
both dressed up. Yeah, no, like maybe juggalos, or I think it was juggalos. Okay, now that you're saying juggalos, maybe, because I was like, why are they clowns? What's going on? I thought it was like some horror movie thing. But yeah, that makes sense. They were probably juggalos.
No, at no point in my life did I ever think I would have someone say to me, now that you're saying juggalos, it starts to make sense. That's not ever
Right?
an interaction I thought I would have, but today we did it, so it worked. So
funny.
the issue here, so this is Ellen on the cover. This is before everyone in the public realized what a monster she is. And she was hosting the Oscars this year, which I do not remember. I used to watch the Oscars every year and then kind of checked out at this point. So I don't know if I'll even remember the movies that got nominated. And then, so it has who will win. And then it's got Tyra Banks on the cover. And this is when it was all like, oh, she's fat. And she's like, I'm 161 pounds and proud of it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
That's so funny. I remember like she had she like revealed her secret of staying young, and it was just Vaseline.
Yeah, I mean, that's everyone's secret. I remember at this time, because this is when she had her talk show, they did a thing where like her and the entire audience were all in their underwear and they all had their weight written on their like tops.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that's on YouTube, and it's bizarre because it was all like, we're owning it, we're in our majesty and blah, blah, blah. It was a thing.
Oh my God.
Then, so what you may not know about TV Guide, since it sort of predates you, the ads up until like 95 were all cigarettes, like 200 cigarette ads in every one. So I'm always curious to see what ads replace cigarettes later. And this first ad is a perfect example for something probably as unhealthy as cigarettes. Bagel bites. When they hired somebody to take this photograph to make these look appealing, and these look disgusting.
They look, yeah, especially with like, it's like cheese and pepperoni, and you're like, ugh, they look like tomato chunks.
Like they look like pox. It looks like a diseased mushroom.
Yeah, when growing up as a Muslim kid, when they were like, hey, you can't have pork, I think this is what made them not.
Yeah.
I think they saw bagel bites, cheese, and pepperoni, and they were like, you know what? Add it to the Quran.
Yeah, this is unholy. Look at it.
This is
unholy.
not good. Yeah. It
You weren't
doesn't even
missing
look
much.
appealing.
No, like
Yeah.
how do you fuck up like cheese and pepperoni? Like that, it's easy to make that look appealing, and they're like, oh no, this is disgusting.
On a bagel.
Yeah. Ugh, gross. And then we get in here, and some of the shows that we're on, I forgot. So when we were talking earlier, you were like, oh, is this kind of just before the golden age, the current sort of golden age of TV kicked in?
Yeah, because the golden age, because I remember hearing or seeing in an old documentary that 2008 was the golden age of television, and because it was like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, all the Nurse Jackie, like all
Mad
these
Men,
like
yeah.
Mad Men. It was all these like people rooting for the bad guy, like the anti-hero type of character, and but you kind of like fall in love with the villain, and the reason why I chose 2007 is because I wanted the year before that. I wanted to see what was going on.
See rock bottom?
What was going on? Yeah, I want to see then right before the golden age, let's see what was going on. And I'm seeing as we're scrolling through, I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much,
no.
but But if you see, you have moment of the week, and then you have, the show Heroes, right? Yeah. Because, superhero movies and TV shows really weren't really that that popular up until Marvels. Once Marvels kicked up, hence 2008.
Yes, when Iron Man came out, yeah.
Yeah, Iron Man. But the only superhero movies that did okay which were the Spider-Man movies, Tobey Maguire's, and some of the Batman movies. Other than that, superhero movies did not do well. So you had Heroes, that show, and was it Marvel? Now I'm saying
no,
Stan
it wasn't.
Lee.
Stan Lee was in the episode, but so as a lifelong comic fan myself, it was slim pickings. You're right. We had a Captain America movie in 1979 where he rode a motorcycle and was like Evel Knievel. There was a really bad Punisher movie, but Batman '89 was amazing. We all loved that first Batman, but then we had nothing until the Spider-Man movies, which the first one is good. And then it was kind of nothing for a long time after. And one of the big shifts that we had in the 2000s was, I actually used to do a bit about this on stage, where growing up, we like suffered for liking this stuff, and like I hated liking this stuff. Like you didn't want to like it, and it was not cool. And then all of a sudden, like around this time, like girls liked it. And like mainstream stuff started going, oh, we can make big budget versions of this stuff and then everyone will come watch it. And it was really weird to see that shift.
Well, all it took was shirtless hot dudes. Listen, you could sell anything with hot people in it.
Yeah.
With shirtless hot dudes and hot girls in skin tight outfits. And
yeah, that's all it takes.
Like,
so Heroes was really unusual because we didn't get this stuff on TV, and sort of the post 9/11 pre 2008 television is a really strange time because comedies people weren't into. They were like, we don't want to see comedies after 9/11. Like these really great comedies premiered in 2001. There was one called Keen Eddie. There was a version of The Tick, and people were like, get this out of here. So they started doing shows like 24 and like the police procedurals and like really grim stuff that people wanted to see.
Fighting terrorism
and torturing people.
I remember this phase of TV because it was like a bunch of, this is when we were going a phase from Russian Germans to Arab people are scary, a booga booga booga.
Yes.
yeah. So I remember this time, and seeing that.
And that was like the predominant thing. Like even Battlestar Galactica, the remake, that was basically about Iraq.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And then they had on Lost, they had it was this Indian dude that was playing an Iraqi guy, and he was an Iraqi guy that used to torture.
Yeah.
And he's evil. He has a bad past. And you're like, okay, dude.
It was like the evil Vietnam vets that we used to get in the 80s. So it was like a really weird, not fun time. And I think the thing about Heroes was it was fun. Like it had that sort of comic book edge of being kind of silly and fun, and it was dramatic. But even then, the first season was a huge hit. And then season 2, everyone was like, I hate this. And it immediately failed. So it was like a very short window. CW was like doing well, but it's funny because on that page with Heroes, with the Stan Lee cameo, underneath it has a whole thing of all the shocking deaths on shows this week. And that's the best summation of what TV was in 2007. It's like, this person was shockingly killed. This character, there's 4 shocking deaths this week.
Yeah. Prison Break's Agent Mahone has pulled up some pretty ruthless tricks this season. But when he talked fugitive Charles Haywire, Patoshik, into jumping into his death, he hit a new low. And you're like, okay.
That doesn't sound fun. And then like 24, there's people lost, CSI. It's like, what is going on? And then there's an ad for, I've never seen this special, but it's George Lopez's Mexican-American HBO special.
America's Mexican. That's right.
Yeah.
Is that the one where he... No. That special is called Why You Crying, right?
Yes, I think so. I don't think I've ever seen this one.
Is that the one where Mexicans, they they're on the lawn and they will never know what's going on, like they will stay in their lawn chair, like what's going on, that one?
It
and
could
they have
be
the corona. It was something like that. But I mean, as a brown person, like 2007. Oh my God. Okay, I got to bring this up. I know it's not part of the TV guide, but I got to bring this up.
No. All about tangents.
2007 for just stand-up comedy was very interesting because there were colored people going on stage and they were a voice. Now we would look at it now as hacky jokes, but at the time it was like, bro, these are trendsetters. Like George Lopez with Mexican humor, Russell Peters with Indian humor. He was doing the Indian accent all the time. Now if you get on stage and you do the Indian accent, everyone will be like, all right, dude, relax. And then this was not on TV Guide, but it was the Axis of Evil. I graduated so it was in 2008, golden age. But remember the Axis of Evil stand-up tour guide? Remember,
the comedy
it was
tour.
Ahmed Ahmed. Yeah, the comedy. It was Ahmed Ahmed, Maz Jobrani. Dian Al-Badallah was doing a guest spot on that one, but it was Aaron Cater. That's right. Remember those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like two Palestinian Americans, an Egyptian, and a Persian, and that was like, I mean, when I watched it like recently, and I was just like, oh, I've heard these jokes before, but it was because of them we've all heard these jokes before because they they were trendsetters at the time.
Yeah, it was a very weird. So I started in 2003 doing stand up regularly, and in London and then in Boston, and we had Patrice O'Neill here.
I was gonna say 2003. Bill Burr.
Burr had moved already, but Eric Andre was
Eric
still
Andre
here.
is Boston.
Yeah, he went to Berkeley, so he started doing stand up here, which usually just meant him coming to the open mic and being naked.
Really? He would get naked at open mics?
Yeah, at Irish bars in Dorchester. So, it was like, but very, very different scenes. Like Boston's always had like a strong black comedy scene, but it's always been very separate. Except Patrice O'Neill ended up being like a much bigger sort of crossover success. But yes, we started getting much more varied ethnicities doing stand-up, because you would sometimes get like George Lopez has been around forever. Like George Lopez had a special in 88, I think, and has had his own shows. And so we had a lot of like Hispanic people. John Leguizamo had some amazing specials, but it was the first time we started getting like Arab Americans doing specials, or like Indian people, although I think he's Canadian, Russell Peters, but
Russell Peters was Indian Canadian. Yeah, that's right. He talked about it. He talked about it a lot, but it was doing a lot of like Indian dad jokes and what Russell Peters was really good at, he did, Nigerian humor, Jamaican humor, Arabic, like, I mean, I saw him not too long ago. I opened for him last June. And yeah, he's really good at crowd work. He gets on stage and he's just like, I mean, obviously he picks out where they're from, all that stuff.
But his confidence level's like crazy high and he just sells it.
Dude, he's still got it. He's so good. Yeah.
But he did a bunch of like dramatic and comedy acting in Canada. He had like 2 or 3 series that were like cop dramas and stuff that he was in that never really made it over here. They're pretty good. Check them out. But yeah, so this is a weird time because Dane Cook had just been like the biggest thing on earth from here.
Oh yeah, the vicious circle. That's right.
And he had just sort of imploded. So stuff was like oddly shifting around this time. 2007, I think this is when, so I, for a while, was getting like Montreal callbacks every year until I told them to stop asking me to come back. But like I would go down and that's where I met like Aparna Nancherla and Kamel, and like those are the people I was on like these callbacks with. So I was even seeing from like the level I was at, like, different voices kind of rising up through the traditional channels, which was pretty cool. But was definitely like a different thing that people would be shocked was unusual looking at it now.
That makes total sense.
So then I'm looking here and it's got the hot list for the week, and I have to say, to toot my own horn, we got Tom Arnold alert, friend of the show. Tom Arnold been on the show. He was in Law and Order that week, and then Bai Ling, also been on the show, was in Lost that week. So patting myself in the back there. But I didn't watch.
And then
most
you
of the
have Monday 19. You have what is? I know this comedian.
Mary Lynn Rajskub. She's also been on the show.
Yeah, we had I literally just did a show with her not too long ago.
She's
That's
awesome.
Right. Where is Tom Arnold? Where do you see him?
He's on Tuesday under Gilmore Girls.
Oh, really? Oh, there
it
it is. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Tom Arnold. That's right.
Tom's awesome. Like Tom, if you've never seen him do stand up, he's amazing. Like one of the funniest
him. Yeah.
He's out of his mind.
He's the one guy I miss. Yeah. He's the one guy I miss. There's a couple people I've been like they're at the Improv, and I was like, oh shit, like I'll be in a lab, but then I have to run to another spot. But they're in the main room obviously because they're big. But the 2 guys that I've been wanting to see in the main room is Tom Arnold and Orny Adams. Those are the 2 guys.
Orny's from Boston.
I heard they're like Tom.
No, Orny is.
Orny is. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I've heard like super funny, crazy, but he's super funny.
and just an awesome dude. But he was in such huge shows, like crazy big shows. I forgot that he was in Law and Order doing like a dramatic role. There was the show Jericho, which I actually really liked. That I did watch at this time. This was a post-apocalyptic show. And basically there was an EMP that killed all technology in America. And so it was almost like a Western where people were trying to like, it was like The Walking Dead without zombies, basically.
Oh, Jericho?
Yeah. And it only lasted
That's
2
awesome.
seasons. And then Walking Dead started in 2010 in that golden age. But it's funny because Jericho was a failure. But I think if it had been 2 years later, that show would still be on.
I mean, honestly, if it goes out now, because now technology's at an all-time high, we can't do anything without the internet. So, like, to sit there and think like we live without the internet, like we have to go back to the 1990s. I mean, people in their 40s and up will be thriving, but like,
Maybe.
but
I mean,
everybody.
There's an amazing movie I would recommend if you like being terrified. There's a movie from 1997 called The Trigger Effect, and it stars Kyle MacLachlan, Elizabeth Shue. And what happens is over Memorial Day weekend on the Friday, the power goes out. It's just like in a suburb, and the power goes out. And they don't explain why. And over the 3 days, you see society completely break down just from the power being out for 3 days. And every step makes perfect sense, and it's just chilling. Like, it's so well done. And it's a movie that I think of all the time. And it in 97, it was really prescient, and it can only be more terrifying now for the very reason you just said.
I might have to get to watching it. I know this is another tangent, but what made me laugh so hard was, I mean, this is a little bit political, but whatever. But like, as you know, like my parents are from Yemen, so yeah, so Yemen, there was the Yemenis. They started like seizing ships, right? And then the U.S. started bombing Yemen. And then the Yemenis go, if you bomb us one more time, we're going to cut the cables, the internet fiber optic cables in the Red Sea.
Yeah.
And I was just like laughing because I was like, did they just put it out? And then as soon as they like turned off the camera, they're like, all right, who has a submarine guy? Like, or a pair of scissors. We gotta figure this out. But it made me laugh. That's one. And also it made me realize, I was like, because they even said if they were to cut that cable, it would wipe out 80% of the internet in Europe, Asia, I believe in Africa as well. I mean, it wouldn't really affect us as much, but imagine just what if they somehow pull that off and wipe out that internet. Oh my God.
It's a very fragile ecosphere that we have with this stuff that people don't realize how many things could go wrong at any time that don't.
Oh, dude, the fact that our nuclear bombs go into like, I mean, I love, okay, I know Biden is our president and all, but like, I mean, if he can't remember names.
Yeah, I mean, also those things are if the things they have controlling those are not on the internet. It's like 1980s Atari DOS technology.
Oh, I've heard about this. This, and then I heard like some of the other nuclear bombs are also like locked with like with Wi-Fi as well. Some of them are on their Wi-Fi. So if it were to go wrong, like we might have an accidental explosion.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up in the 80s too, where that was like every day they were telling us that was going to happen.
Oh, dude. I mean, not just in the 80s. I also during President Eisenhower's, I think President Eisenhower was in the 50s.
Yeah, post World War II,
in the 50s. Yeah. So in the President Eisenhower, because they were so scared of nuclear bombs, that's what led them to release the interstate system or to pass the interstate system.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, if there's any nuclear bombs, you guys are easily to get out of this state using the interstate. Man.
I made the mistake of A, going to Las Vegas, but B, when I was there, going to the Atomic Testing Museum, which I've talked about on the show before. But for some weird reason, I was like, oh, this will be fun. And it is chilling. Like they make you sit in this concrete bunker and you experience a reenactment of the first test bomb. So like the room shakes and there's smoke and you see it through the little window and all this stuff. And it is like core shaking. So I was like, everyone should have to do this.
Wow. Oh my God. That's just terrifying.
It was terrifying. So there's a bunch of shows that I feel like people got into later through streaming on here because this was the time when it was all American Idol. Like 5 days a week it's on. It's just reality shows, and the few sort of scripted shows that were quality stuff like Prison Break. People weren't watching HBO stuff really. That was like when it came out on DVD, people were like, you got to see this show streaming kind of thing. So it was almost like a weird transitional time.
That's right. There is I'm taking a look right now. Oh, you see the OC, ER. For sure. You got to see Las Vegas. Yeah. Oh, Monk. I actually have a friend that was just telling me how he loves Monk so much, and it's that one's been picked up from streaming or like.
There's there's two kinds of people
watching it.
There's people who love Monk and people who've never seen Monk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Extremes.
I remember being. I mean, I was 14 years old, so like I remember seeing so many commercials about Monk or advertising about Monk, and I was like, I didn't understand what was going on. You know, I was like, whatever about the show, because Family Guy was everyone was obsessed with Family Guy, or at least everyone in my school. So
I mean, that makes sense.
Like, have you seen Monk? Yeah, I was younger. I was
Family Guy's fine, but if you guys watched the fine program Monk on the USA Network, and Monk was kind of a throwback. Like, it's kind of a throwback to like Columbo and the sort of 70s cop and procedurals, which I think is why it kind of stood out. And you know what I totally forgot about? And this show was massive hit, and I never hear anyone talk about it anymore. Laughs.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, House was such a huge one. Because Hugh Laurie was just such a killer actor, and how great he was. I remember watching Conan O'Brien host the Emmys. I think it was 2006 or 2007. And there was like I love Conan so much, but it was like, you know what I'm talking about, where he's trying to get to the Emmys,
yes,
like right
yes,
before
yes,
his
yes.
monologue, yeah, and then like he like crashes into different sets of all these shows. So then when House, I never seen it, but I remember Hugh Laurie comes out as the character House, and he's like describing Conan of how ugly he is, but I remember like people were cheering and like going crazy, like
it
just
was like the number
Hugh
one
Laurie
show.
was just. Yeah, they were obsessed with him. That's right.
But he was a comedian. Like, that was the weirdest thing. So I was like a huge nerd for UK comedy, and like the 80s UK stand-up scene was like alt comedy was like their mainstream there. So all these bizarre sort of two people acts and sort of sketch actors and people who would do characters, that was like the mainstream of stand-up in the UK in the 80s. And Hugh Laurie was one of those people. Him and Stephen Fry were comedians. So when he's in this U.S. show playing an American serious doctor with an American accent, I was like, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. It was very strange. But everyone loved him, and that show was massive. And again, I totally forgot that show existed till I looked at this TV guide. And no one ever, like, people aren't like, oh, I binged House this week.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, some of them just last, or like those shows that didn't do well at the time but then blew up, like Arrested Development. Got canceled and then
uncanceled.
Had this like this cult, then uncanceled due
Family
to their
Guy.
cult following. Family Guy, similar to Community.
Yeah, and also Futurama.
Futurama.
Yeah, it was a strange time where they didn't really quite know what to do. And Arrested Development was one of those shows that was a comedy that was in that post 9/11 early aughts that people were just like, I don't want to watch this. And then later when it came out on DVD, that's when people were like, you got to check this out, like, you know, borrow this, watch this. Very, very strange. So let's go into the week here. Where is Monday? So the big TV guides have a different, the classic TV guides go Saturday to Friday. But this one, I believe, goes Monday to Sunday.
What page?
Page, where am I? Page 52 of the, oh no, that's daytime. There we go. 53 of the PDF is prime time on Monday.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if anything popped out there for you that you would watch. But there's a bunch of stuff I forgot about, like Super Nanny and Wife Swap.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Yeah, 53 Monday, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Wife Swap. My brothers and we used to watch that show a lot. I remember that. Let me see. Wife Swap was a good one. Oh, we loved How I Met Your Mother. That was a show we watched a lot. Prison Break. Well, Prison Break was a big one that all my friends did, but I didn't watch that one. But I would say if I had to go with it would be Wife Swap, 2.5 Men. Rules of Engagement. I loved that show. I loved when David Spade joined.
Eight Simple Rules for dating my teenage daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 8 Simple Rules, and then the dad died.
John Ritter.
Yeah, it was John Ritter died, and then David Spade came in as the nephew. Yeah, and I remember so happy that he came in because he was my favorite character in that show. And then after that, by the time here's the thing, 2.5 Men we would watch, but Rules of Engagement, we would either watch it or we had to stop watching TV, but because
go to bed.
Because, go to bed, all that other stuff. But I remember specifically 2.5 Men for sure. And How I Met Your Mother. We loved that show.
I worked at our local CBS affiliate in the early 2000s, and there's a thing, I don't even know if they still do them, but there was a thing called upfronts that the networks would do every year. And sort of before the new season, they'd have a big event. They'd show the pilots for all the new shows for all the advertisers and then be like, this show's going to be great. Now buy some ads. And so I remember the year that 2.5 Men started. We watched the pilot for that. It was that, Veronica Mars, there was another show that ended up being a big hit. But I remember watching 2.5 Men and being like, this is fucking garbage. I was like, this is going to be gone in 13 episodes. And of all the shows they showed at the upfront, it was on for 40 years. It was on forever. Yeah. And I was like, well, shows what I know.
And then Charlie Sheen left went crazy. And then they replaced him with... Yeah, his Tiger Blood years. Then he got fired, and then Ashton Kutcher replaced it, and then it was still doing great. It was still lasted forever. Yeah,
I think I give full credit to John Cryer on that one. This is also around the time when Charlie Sheen did his stand-up tour.
Oh yeah,
awful.
Yeah, he bombed, but here's the thing: he sold tickets. It was anger management tour, but he sold tickets. Man. I'm glad you brought that up because I just spoke with a friend younger comedian, and he was just so upset because he was like, man, all these Viners and internet people, they're just because they have a following, they're just all of a sudden going on stage and they're like, oh, I'm going to be a comedian, and they're selling all these tickets, and I'm like, hey, they don't last long. No. And I was telling him, I was like, remember, every famous person has always waltzed their way into stand-up comedy, but no one has the grits that you and I have, where it's I'm willing to travel, go on stage, and make people laugh. And it's you gotta, it's the novelty that you gotta be good at this, obviously, because it's if you're just going in for the money, you're not gonna last long, which a lot of people were doing.
It's always weird to
Stormy
me.
Daniels.
I know. It's always weird to me that for a long time, and this has been true since the 80s, when someone needs to make money based usually on infamy rather than fame, the first thing they do is go, I'm going to do a stand-up comedy tour. And I'm like, you've never done stand-up if you think that's going to make you money. Because it is not lucrative. But do you know who John Wayne Bobbitt was?
John Wayne Bobbitt? No.
So in 1994, he's a real piece of shit. He was this guy who abused his wife, and she cut his dick off and threw it out of her car.
Lorena Bobbitt. Yeah. Okay, I've heard of.
So that guy, after that whole story became such a huge hit, and he got his dick reattached, he went on a stand-up comedy tour. So it's not a new phenomenon where you have these people who are like, yeah, that's what I'll do, because they know they'll sell tickets for freak pointing or for people who just want to see a famous person in person and kind of don't care what the act is or if they even have one. So it's always been that way, and they can get away with it once. Your exact point. You can do one tour like that, but no one's going to come back. And by the time you're done, your little blip of infamy is over. So that's exactly what Charlie Sheen did. And I remember at the time, they were soliciting jokes from stand-ups. They were offering $400 a joke for people. It's desperate for anything. And people were doing it. I was like, I don't know. that's terrible.
I would have sold a couple here and there for them.
Yeah. But I was like, that's how desperate they were, though. They're just like, anybody, anything.
I mean, even during like, I think it was during the strike or whatever, this one super internet girl, you know, trying to do TV and stuff, but then her agents and manager was like, hey, there's a strike happening, so just do stand-up. And, you know, she sold out on a Tuesday at Cobb's. Good for her. Of
course.
But it's also like, yeah, and I try my best. Like, I used to be so jealous of these people because I'm like, oh, they're just famous.
Right. They're
and
cheating.
now
It's a
they
shortcut.
Yeah, it's a shortcut, but it's like, again, there's a certain grit a true stand-up comedian has. Like, there's a difference between, like, a stand-up comedian is entertaining, gets on stage in front of people he doesn't know, makes them laugh, and now they're their fans. You know, all these other, from the internet people to John Wayne Bobbitt to all these, you know, Stormy Daniels, literally like, okay, I'm famous, let me do a tour and make some money. It won't last long. And I'm glad that you brought up John Wayne Bobbitt. I'm going to start bringing that up. Like,
it's ridiculous.
Like, they won't last. It's always been that way. Yeah.
The funniest thing was they would do one of two things, or both. They would make a porn movie, like an Octomom, or or they would go into stand-up. John Wayne Bobbitt did both. Stand-up was his second choice there.
Wait. Oh man, stand-up. Why did we choose?
Yeah.
Why did we choose this profession?
I don't know,
oh
man.
My God.
When some guy's like, "Well, I got my dick cut off and I made a porno and that didn't work out, so I guess now I'll have to do stand-up."
Yeah.
Awful.
Rory Scovel has a great bit about it where he was like, I like how porn, it's like when all things go, it's like, I guess I'll fuck people for a living. Like, that's just an option. Like, I guess I'll just do porn. It's like,
yeah, or like that Stormy Daniels thing where it's like, well, porn didn't work out. I guess I'll have to do stand-up now.
yeah.
Like the thing people would always be like, if it goes so bad for you, you're going to have to do porn. Those people are like, and then it gets worse and you do stand-up.
Oh. Now you're really vulnerable on stage.
Yeah, now I'm bummed out. Wednesday, anything jump out at you? Again, I will say, so Gilmore Girls is on, and that's a show everybody told me was great, right? And I could not believe, I like refused to believe it because I'm like, some CW lady show, there's no way I'm going to like that. And I think the first year of the pandemic, my wife and I watched all of it, and it's amazing. It's so good.
Gilmore Girls.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I work as a tour guide, and there's a section in the Doheny Mansion in Beverly Hills. Lots of movies and TV shows that they use, and there was a section where I bring up that they shot Gilmore Girls in. And people a lot of my tours freaked the hell out. I've never seen it. I used to think it was a chick show.
It's good,
but
man.
It turns out
it's well written.
It's a family show.
But it's funny. It's like legitimately good. Like it's funny. It's well written. The characters are really good. The guest stars are crazy. Like the people they got on that show are nuts. Like it. If you ever like, or should I start binging a show? I highly recommend that show. Bruce McCullough from Kids in the Hall is a reoccurring character on the show.
I mean, one day I think it's for sure on Netflix.
Yeah.
I could probably rewatch some Gilmore Girls and just
you'll be shocked.
Just like see what all the fuss is. Definitely George Lopez and According to Jim on ABC were like shows that I was watching as a kid. But definitely a show that I wish I got into now that you told me was Jericho. The 36 hours before the bombs are seen in flashback, shedding light on the actions of Jake and Hawkins. I would have loved to watch that show, Jericho. That seems like
it was cool.
Show.
It was cool, and it had this huge cult audience, and it got canceled. And then there was like a big TV Guide did articles on it, but there was a big thing where I forget what it was they were mailing, but the fans were mailing something from the show. It was like potatoes or something to the network to be like, save the show, here's a potato, or something tied to the show. And it worked. And they got a second season. And it was like a really weird blip that the network was like, okay, because it was post Lost. All the networks were trying to have a weird show, right? Like they were like, let's have our risky weird show, because Lost was like a fluke hit, which is why we got Heroes. And it's why Jericho got greenlit. But nothing after that really caught on like Lost did. And so it was interesting to see like which things they greenlit thinking they'd have the next Lost, and Jericho was not it. Like it was a grim. It's very good, but it is dark. Like it's a bum out show. You know, like look what it's about.
Yeah. I'm gonna definitely try to see if I could find it for free on a streaming channel.
I'm sure
Maybe
you
it's on
can.
Tubi or something
Yeah,
like
it came
that,
out on
but-
DVD, and I think it's streaming. And I think the seasons are only 13 episodes too. Like it's a pretty quick watch, but it and also warning, it doesn't tie up at the end of the second season, so you will be left hanging. But it's worth watching.
I mean, I'd probably just watch season 1 and just see what's going on.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, just see. Are you on Thursday right now?
Yes, Thursday. Yep.
Okay, there is. Oh my God! First thing that caught my eye was on cable. You had Cartoon Network, which is Ed, and Eddie. That was like a show I wish I watched more.
Yep.
Larry King Live, but I didn't have cable. Wish I did, but I didn't. So,
Are there
but
things
mainly
that you,
it was
like after you like moved out and got cable? Are there shows that you've like gone back and tried to revisit that you didn't get to watch when they were on because you didn't have cable?
Not really. By the time I moved out, like Netflix was popping off. I didn't really watch a lot of Oh no, I watched stuff on my laptop. I didn't really I would watch Game of Thrones when I was in college with my friends. That was it. Yeah, Game of Thrones, South Park. Yes, South Park. South Park. That was like the one show I remember. Like I didn't have cable, but now that I do, or now that I could get it all from the internet, I would watch South Park, a lot of the Comedy Central shows,
Yeah.
Workaholics, pretty much all of Comedy Central, what they were putting out.
I can't believe South Park's still on and still making new episodes, by the way.
I mean,
They're still funny.
They're still funny, and they just hit the nail on. They hit the nail on the head. Like they know exactly what they're talking about. I mean, honestly, this is what blew me away. When in 2015 they introduced PC principle, right? And the PC is a political correctness principle, right? And it was right when the wave of political correctness came to be, where it was like, you can't say that, that's offensive, you can't blah 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 blah. So it was like the start of 2015, 2016 was like the start of political correctness. And then one of my favorite scenes when they first introduced it was these two farmers, and they see PC principal, and he has this little fraternity house, and they're like, yep, what's going on? Turns out another PC frat house moved in. It's probably gonna last another 5 and 6 years. Lo and behold, 5 to 6 years later, no one gives a shit about PC.
Yeah.
Like no one cares about PC culture. It's like, well, especially when it comes to comedy.
Yeah.
For other things, it's like, yeah, there's bad people. But when it comes to jokes, dude, now people clip up their jokes. Like it could be the most offensive joke. You will find an audience.
Well, it's funny
Like,
though, that's cyclical, right? That was how it was in the boom in the late 80s, early 90s, the same thing. Like you had guys who were like, I could say something real offensive and it'll get noticed. And then they realize it's almost the same thing as like the people who get famous on TikTok and they get an audience, but then they don't have an act. Like the guys and the people I see it now, they get a clip of like something that went like, I'm offensive to the thing, and it went all over the place. But then people come out and they got nothing else. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's sort of the same principle as like the YouTuber doing stand up. It's like, I took this shortcut to get a reaction, but now I some people do, but most of them have got nothing to back it up with. And it's like, so then stuff shifts, because then people go, oh, well, that's not going to work anymore because people are getting hip to it. They're like, oh, these guys, that's one funny thing that was shocking. They just suck for a half hour. And then it always does that. Like I've seen the shifts.
Yeah,
go,
you got to be smarter than
where
that.
people did
Similar
like,
to...
it went like one line, like impersonal one-liners, and then it went like long stories, and then it was like that shock stuff. Like it always just keeps going around.
Hey, that makes sense. Well, I mean, yeah, you've been been around longer than me. You are a great asset to have. I will definitely. You don't have to apologize. No, I will definitely hit you up. I'm like, because I'm a big fan of just history of stand-up. Have you heard of the podcast History of Stand-Up Comedy by Wayne Fetterman?
Yep.
I'm a big
I know
nerd
him.
when it comes to comedy. So, oh, you know him? Oh, god damn, you're like the guy. But like, I'm a big fan when it comes to just comedy as a whole and like the knowledge of it. So like I remember reading about the Comedy Store and like watching some documentaries about it, but they were talking about Andrew Dice Clay, where in the 80s or late 80s, he got in trouble over a gay joke.
Yeah.
And this was when people starting to recognize the LGBT community. And he was just like, and you could just see him in an interview like this, please excuse my language, but he was like, turns out the fags were mad. And I didn't know what was so, if it made, but he, like, if you look back at the jokes he was saying, it was like highly offensive.
Of course.
Like, it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then he, but that was the funny. It was like these new waves of like, hey, you got to be nicer to certain types of people.
Well, it's just like not even nicer, just like smarter about how you make jokes. Like you can't you can't rely on stereotypes or easy shortcuts. You have to come up with a more human angle or something, you know, which is harder to do, which is why a lot of people can't. Like I'll probably cut this out because I say it every single week on the show, and the people playing TV Guidance Counselor Bingo will be like, oh God. But the book I always recommend to people who are starting stand-up is Stephen King wrote a book called Dance Macabre. And it's Stephen King's nonfiction book about horror fiction, right? And it's about the structure of horror. And the reason I recommend it to people who do stand-up is horror and comedy are the same exact structure, with a different punchline. Same exact thing, right? And for whatever reason, and the book's very well written, it's super easy to read, it's entertaining, it's autobiographical. People read his assessment of how horror is structured, and it's easier for them to then apply it to comedy than if they read it about comedy first. So like, for example, the shock joke, the Andrew Dice Clay joke, is the same thing as in a horror movie when like the cat jumps out and you jump. You jump and you're scared, but you're mad now. It's like you don't trust the movie. They've tricked you into reacting, right? But if it's like you like the character and they build a world and now you're like scared for them, which is a lot harder to do, it's a lot more satisfying. So it's kind of the same thing. And the example he uses is this thing he calls the clown at midnight, and it's about context. So he's like, and I know people are scared of clowns, so this isn't the best example anymore, but he's like, a clown in the circus is funny, but a clown on your lawn at midnight is scary, right? But the inverse is true. Like a monster on your lawn at midnight is terrifying, but a monster like, you know, Michael Myers in a circus is funny, you know? So it's like, in that context, it makes more sense to me. Those kind of shock things.
I'm gonna read it. Yeah, it's
a great book.
14 pages.
Yeah, it's actually a really
read it,
quick
yeah.
read too, and just for structure, it's amazing. I also recommend Cliff Nesteroff's book, The Comedians, especially the audiobook version, because Cliff reads it himself, and it's about the birth of stand-up in America, which is post vaudeville, pre 1980s, when it was like sort of this weird mobbed up weird thing. And it's a great book. Cliff's really great. Cliff's new book is about exactly what you're talking about. It's about outrage culture. So, you know, people are like, well, you can't say that now, or you can't do those jokes now. Cliff went back and researched comedy into the 1800s, where people in 1890 are like, you can't make Irish jokes anymore, comedy's dead. Like, it's the same shit for 200 years, and it's great. It came out a couple months ago. It's awesome. Like, you'd love it if you're interested in that stuff. Cliff's a really smart dude.
Check it out.
He actually does a lot of LA stuff in LA, like presentations and stuff that are worth checking out if you're out and about. Thus ends my old man talk.
No, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Senpai.
I will mention on Thursday, Grey's Anatomy is on, and this is a show I've never watched, but this show I'm pretty sure is still on. Like, it's on season like 25.
Which show? CSI?
No, Grey's Anatomy.
Oh yeah, it is still going.
It's been going forever.
On ABC. That's right. And people still watch it.
They must have. It's still on.
Listen, you'll never run out of day players, so.
Well, I think it's also the shows that work like that are like, that show's about a hospital, right? So the hospital's the character and you can swap out who works there. It's like, it's kind of a perfect model for you just have people go in and out of the thing. They tried to do that with Scrubs, which actually I just saw on the Thursday night here. I loved Scrubs. Scrubs was a really great show.
Yeah.
But around 2007, 2008, they tried to do like a new class with like the next group of doctors and make the old cast like the senior people who are teaching them now, and everybody hated it and the show was immediately canceled.
Yeah, because the characters were the original cast was just so lovable.
Yeah.
And they loved it so much, While Grey's Anatomy, I remember just hearing on Twitter, oh my God, this character died.
Okay.
They would kill off certain characters. I was like, damn, that's wild. But it was Shonda Rhimes. She still runs, she still writes everything, right?
Yeah.
Still writes every
So
episode.
that was a weird shift that I didn't. So Thursday nights, NBC was always must-see TV. It was always sitcoms. That's what Seinfeld, Friends, Frasier, for 15 years. Cheers, Night Court. It was sitcoms and comedy. And then all those shows ended and they couldn't find anything that worked. And weirdly, Shonda Rhimes came in with these dramas and made Thursday nights all about these dramas, which is such a weird shift. That worked. I've never seen those shows, but people love them. Maybe they're good. I don't know. They've been on a long time. There's a thing on because American Idol was so popular. Everyone tried to get their version of American Idol, which is why we had Next Top Model with Tyra Banks, or she was on Sports Illustrated's cover this week, which was in the TV Guide. But this one,
The Voice,
this one I don't recall. America's Ballroom Challenge. It's a ballroom dancing reality show competition. And on Friday night, it's the International Latin Division.
What? I don't even remember that show.
I don't either.
Oh, it was a Friday show.
Yeah.
That's why no one watches TV on Fridays.
No one
Everyone
was
was mainly, well, unless you had Friday Night SmackDown. I definitely remember that one.
Which is like ballroom dancing.
Yeah, it really is. I know it's another tangent, but a movie you should watch is The Iron Claw. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a new starring Zac Efron and that one dude from The Bear. It's really good.
What is it? It's not a martial arts movie, I presume.
No. It's about wrestling. It's about the Von Erich family. It's about Kevin Von Erich and his brothers.
Yep.
It's really good. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Dallas, so I remember hearing about the Von Erichs growing up, especially at the big arena that they all performed at.
Were they the big? Who was the big hometown celebrities that you remember as a kid? Was it just them?
The Von Erichs, but also the ones from the radio. It was holy shit! It was Part-Time Jess.
Was that the morning radio drive time show kind of thing?
The morning radio. It was 106.1 Kiss FM, and it was Jesse that everyone was obsessed. Yeah, it was Jesse. Who else? Rob, the guy who he opened his own bar in the middle. Let me find the
a classic morning zoo show with a guy who talks like this, and then the guy's like this, and then the giggle girl who's doing the news.
Yeah, now I remember. It was the Kid Craddock in the morning. And everyone loved Kid Craddock, who later on, but he died not too long ago from years ago. Yeah, he died from a brain aneurysm. So just randomly. Yeah, but it was the cast of the Kid Craddock in the morning show. And I remember they got international. They went viral internationally because they did R. Kelly's Ignition, but they sang it as the national anthem. So
morning radio.
Yeah.
Classic.
Oh yeah, Kid Craddock. Yeah, Kid Craddock in the morning. He died in 2013. But they had Kelly, Big Al. That's what it was, and then Jesse. Yeah, and Jenna. So it was these four people that everybody... And then they had one kid named Part-Time Justin. Yeah, it was Part-Time Justin.
He's the intern that they make fun of and make him do stunts.
Yeah, and and he was very, very funny, gay, sassy kid, and they loved him. And he later on joined improv, I remember. He later on joined... He came into the improv program that we were.
Did you start doing stand up in Dallas and then move to LA, or did you start when you moved to LA?
I started improv and sketch comedy, and then later, months later, November of 2016. It was the week after the election.
You said everything's so great and funny. I'm gonna.
Well, I mean, I was already doing improv and sketch, and I've been meaning to do stand up because you know how it is. You're like, I'm gonna get on stage.
Yeah.
Next week, and I just never, I kept postponing it, and then I was like, fine, I'm gonna go this week, but then Trump won, and I was like, I'll go next Tuesday, because it was an open mic every Tuesday.
Gotcha.
That's why it was just happened to be on that day. Yeah. I started in Dallas and then started doing some stand up there, and performing, and then all it took was one guy to be like, hey man, just want to say I think you're really funny, and that gave me enough confidence to be like, I'm moving to Hollywood.
Just pack up the car. We're going. Yeah.
I'm moving to Los Angeles.
Well, I do
Pack
love
up
LA.
your bags, everybody.
It is nice.
Yeah. I mean, LA is nice. The weather here is nice. And the reason why I chose LA over New York is because I would rather suffer in LA than suffer in New York.
New York is miserable. Like so many of this. I mean, I won't go on a whole tangent about the assholeness of New York comedy in the last couple of years, especially. But the thing about New York is everybody there is so miserable because they're 35 and they have 6 roommates and they live in a shithole and it's New York and there's no escape, that they really have to convince themselves that everything they're doing is the best thing ever, because that's the only way that they can justify being in a really shitty living situation.
Ken, I have never heard a more accurate description of what New York is. It's always like, hey man, we're the best. We're just better comics.
You haven't done it since New York done it.
Yeah. And like I go to New York and I do stand up, and it's like, yeah, you guys are good, but you guys aren't like the greatest comedians in the world. It's like, calm down. Like, you guys get your head out of your own.
Yeah, it's like, dude, LA's nice. Everyone's in a good mood. There's good food. Like, I can't do 8 sets in a night, but that's fine. I also don't have rats dying in front of me on a subway.
Yeah. I mean, I can hit an open mic tonight, but I'm like, man, it's fine. But
you have some self-respect.
But I mean, but also like I can. The weather here is great. I could go right now. I could go to the beach and enjoy my time there. Right now, or I could go ride a bike or enjoy just the weather here is nice. I like the friends I've made here. I don't know. I had my friend yesterday. He my old roommate. We were hanging out, and he moved to St. Louis, Missouri a year ago, and he was in LA for 6 years, and he was like, "Do you plan on leaving LA?" And I was like, "I'm not quite done with this city." Yeah, I'm not quite done with LA yet. And I don't see myself living here for the rest of my life. Maybe, I'm not sure. But
I always used to say, I wouldn't mind living there, but I really want to die there.
That's nice. That's beautiful to say. I mean, when New York, every time I come to New York, I go, I love visiting. I would never want to leave.
It's awful. Like, New York to me was everything bad about Boston with additional bad things and no escape.
That makes sense,
like,
man.
I grew up here, but like, I live 10 minutes outside of Boston, and I have like a pretty quiet, I can like buy a house and I have some land and it's quiet. Like, you can't do that in New York. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, LA is expensive, but your quality of life, like you can have like a much more satisfying quality of life, to your point. Yeah. You can go to the beach. But also as like a movie and TV nerd, being out in LA and like, you do tours, like just seeing all this familiar stuff from stuff you watched forever. You're like, there's Pee Wee Herman's house and there's this thing I saw and everything. And it's like oddly comforting,
The coolest moment was I was riding my bike and I saw Henry Winkler just sitting on the porch on his phone. And I was like, Henry!
He's just there.
Hey! And he was just like, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Like,
and an awesome
very,
dude.
very kind.
Awesome dude.
Yeah, really cool. Very nice. Do you know him too? Because you know everybody.
He went to Emerson College here in Boston, so he's here often.
Oh, my God. Oh, so you've seen him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any specific?
Oh, yeah. And then we just have Saturday and Sunday. Anything on Saturday, and we'll wrap it up.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the only thing I was watching on Saturday was Saturday Night Live, but America's Most Wanted. I remember seeing that. America's Most Wanted. I remember Osama bin Laden was number 1 on the list for a long time.
And it's nice that they put that on the TV show to get the word out because people didn't know about him.
Yeah, they had no idea who that guy was. Wow, this is interesting. I didn't know Austin City Limits was televised. I had no idea.
Yeah, that was on for years on PBS, and there's some really great performances on that show. It was one of the few live music shows that was like, I think it's still on.
You have the CW. I thought it was WB33.
They merged by this time. This was the first year they merged. So you had UPN and WB. And in 2007, they were both, or 6 rather, they weren't doing well. So they merged into the CW.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, let me see Saturday. George Lopez. I'm looking. The Chronicles of Riddick. Oh, yeah, when TBS was just showing movies. Yeah,
I saw that in the theater.
Sunday, the one show I wish I got in was The Amazing Race. I think if they bring back Amazing Race, it would probably do well.
That seems like...
Oh, Beauty and the Geek.
Oh, God,
I remember this.
Yes. I have friends
that
who
was
were
such
on that.
a crazy... No way.
Yeah,
Beauty and the Geek. I remember.
Imagine it's 2007 and there are comics. And they're like, hey, you guys want to be on a show called Beauty and the Geek? All of them say yes.
Yeah, I remember Beauty and the Geek. This show. And then there was like, with this show, they like force you, like they were like, this will be your partner.
Yeah.
But then I remember it was like, this girl's beauty fell in love with like this guy, Geek. He had a makeover and they ended up like... Now they're like, are they still together?
I bet they're not. I'm curious to see if someone has done like a deep dive follow-up of all those reality TV show couples to see like how many actually lasted more than 6 months. Because the funny thing was the very first reality show like that was in 95 and it was called Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire? And the millionaire was this terrible hack comic named Rick Rockwell. And he was like a cruise ship comic and like a warm-up comic. He's terrible, but he was a millionaire. And he got married to this girl on the show. And I remember at the time people were like, this is the death of television. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. And then fast forward 10 years later and there's like 25 versions of that show on TV.
Beauty and the... Oh, yes, I remember this. Yeah. They had, like, crazy makeovers. That's right. And this is when, like it was all about big tits. That's what considered you a
when
hot
is it
girl.
not about big tits?
It was... I mean, I'm all about booty, dude. Hey, we're
think of society.
Young millennials and Gen Z. We eat ass now, Ken.
I'm sure. But think of society.
Get your old ass out of here.
Society always loves big boobs.
That makes sense. No, that's true. That's true. I mean, it's still popular. Don't get me wrong. Let me see. I remember it was like season 2 or season 3 of Beauty and the Geek. There was like, they changed it to where it was like a really hot dude and a geek girl.
Oh, equal opportunity. Like that's nice. You know, they're changing up the formula.
That's right. And then the hot dude was like banging a bunch of the beauties.
Oh, of course. That's what people tune in for. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, well, the reality shows were popular at this time because the last writer's strike before the last one was in the early 2000s. And that's when all the networks rolled out these reality shows because they didn't have to have union writers. And it kind of screwed us all over for a lot of reasons. Namely, one of the reality shows caused someone to become president. But anyway, you know, we never recovered from that early 2000s writer's strike that made us just filthy with reality shows. But that being said, to your point, The Amazing Race did seem more interesting than some of the other stuff.
Than the other.
Yeah.
Cops, lots of cops.
I loved watching Cops growing up, and now I feel terrible about it.
Really?
Yeah, because
why?
Well, I watched it from when it started in '87 till when it ended. Every Saturday, I loved that show, and now when I see clips of it, I just feel bad because I'm like, oh, these people need help. You know what I mean? Like this guy's, sad, and I'll be like, this cop's an asshole. You know, like it rarely was people who deserved like a comeuppance. It would be like, oh, come on.
Oh yeah, we got to call like a public
or like a kid,
service worker.
Yeah. You know, I will say one of my favorite things though about it, and I used to talk about this on stage before it got super hacky, was Cops is the only time I ever heard anyone use the excuse of, these aren't my pants. And I never met anyone ever who accidentally put pants on that weren't theirs. But Cops, every week.
Yeah, these aren't even my pants.
Like, how does that happen? It doesn't.
Yeah, or that Cops one, it was like, are you on drugs? And he looks at him wide-eyed. He goes, what is drugs?
Oh, there's one where this guy was completely naked and he had a fire extinguisher and just swinging it around. And they were like, sir, are you on anything? He's like, no. And they're like, did you take drugs? And he goes, I smoked a wet daddy. And I'm like, I didn't know what a wet daddy was. Do you?
No, what is a wet daddy? Oh, laced with PCP?
Yes, it's a marijuana cigarette soaked in PCP.
Oh, yeah, that's what
that doesn't sound fun. Like, I don't know anyone be like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good time.
No, not fun whatsoever.
No. So that is the week. How did you feel about your excursion back to 2007? It sounds like you've got some stuff that you want to watch now.
I feel great. I have like 7 tabs open of all these different things that you want me to watch and read. Yeah. So I got some homework to do.
Happens.
And I appreciate it. I'm probably going to watch some old clips of Beauty and the Geek just to see.
Yeah, that'll end up what you end up doing. Did you ever see the Joe Schmo show at this time?
The Joe Schmo.
So this was the first thing Kristen Wiig ever did. She was one of the groundlings and she got hired to do this. And it was a reality show, but it was a joke where it was all fake, like a version of The Bachelor. But there was one guy who didn't know it was a joke. So everyone else was an actor.
Wow, so similar to Jury Duty.
Exactly the same. Kristen Wiig played a doctor on it, and it's really funny and weird. And like they keep getting stranger and stranger to see if this kid ever figures it out. And the funny thing is when the show started, it was like, this guy's an idiot, let's shit all over him. But by the end of the show, they realize he's kind of a sweet dope and like kind of like a nice guy. And so they stop being like mean. They like shift the show. It's really interesting.
What the fuck? This is exactly like Jury Duty.
Yeah. You know, everything new is old. Everything old is new again. It's the same stuff. It just comes back every 10 years.
Ken, you just blew my mind. I literally thought Jury Duty was this brilliant idea. Now it's like, oh no, it's just Joe Schmo.
But you might enjoy that too.
Oh my god.
Well, I'll have to get a follow. I'll have to get a follow up about what you think of everything all the homework you've done. I'll have to hear about.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out to me, and I appreciate it. I love this podcast. This is a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. Thanks for doing it. It's been nice talking to you. There you go. That's Ahmed. A special, not special. It's a special, and the special's. You'll see. Go to Ahmed Loves Bread. That's easier. You can. Yeah, and you can watch it there. It's also on YouTube. Anyway, I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Did you know that? You should subscribe. I do weird stuff. I do little shorts about strange TV shows, that kind of thing. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see on there. I'd be happy to try and make some videos that people want to watch. Also, you may listen to this show on YouTube now that YouTube is the exclusive Google podcast platform. Leave a review of the show wherever you listen to it. It is helpful and will help offset the 1-star reviews I occasionally get by people who dislike me. Hopefully you don't dislike me, and next week you still won't dislike me, and you'll be here for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
Well, all it took was shirtless hot dudes.